All right, welcome to the Endless Bullets podcast. I am Matt Swafford, your host, and today we are doing Flash Gordon, the 1980 sci-fi classic, starring Sam J. Jones, Topol, Timothy Dalton, Brian Blessed. Is it Blessed or Blessed?
I
I've
say
heard both.
blessed.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've heard both, but Blessed just sounds better. Um, Melody Anderson and Max von Sydow. I am joined today by my good friend Tony Roberts from Analog Toys. Tony, introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do.
Yeah, I'm the host and founder of the Analog Toys YouTube channel, which is primarily focused on the vintage toys of our childhood. So, although I do go all the way back to the 60s, so 60s, 70s, 80s, particularly action figures. I've been on YouTube for 5.5 years, and I particularly enjoy it, and looking forward to teaming up with you again for Iconicon this year.
Absolutely, yeah. That was the highlight of my year last year. I'm sure it was
Yeah.
for you. And I can't wait. We got a lot of things. Can't wait to tell everybody what we have cooking for that.
Yep.
But yes, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And when I first started Endless Bullets, I had reached out to you and I was like, let's do a different film. And I watched that film for the first time since I was probably 7 years old, which was The Park Is Mine. And it's an okay film. It's
Yep.
not an action movie. And I always thought it was an action movie. That movie, it's a drama with a couple of action scenes in it.
Yep.
And I was like, man, there's going to be nothing to talk about here. So as much as I like that movie, I was like, no, I got to pick something else. And I wanted to go. The first episode was Roadhouse with Michael French, and I wanted to do something kind of not opposite of that, but just a different genre. And
Yeah.
Flash Gordon, a lot of people would say, is a comic book movie. It's an adventure movie, but it's still an action movie. I mean, it's there's pretty much always something going on.
Yep.
So even though there are no bullets in this movie, there are laser guns, and that kind of counts. So, and I knew you love this movie, and I love this movie, so I was like, this is a perfect match. So,
Yeah.
when did you first see this film?
I want to say it was either 1981 or 1982. So I was born the same year that Star Wars came out. I was born in June, so obviously, too young to actually see Star Wars in the cinema. And even when Empire came out in 1980, I was still too young, and my parents didn't really take me to the cinema. But it was either 81 or 82. My parents bought a Betamax video recorder. And they went and rented 2 films the first weekend that we got it. And those films were Clash of the Titans and Flash Gordon.
Oh, wow. two absolute classics.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Particularly Flash Gordon. So I got the opportunity to... It was my first experience. I didn't even know what a video recorder was. Like, I've got a brother who's 6 years older, and he's having to explain it to me. He's like, it's not like TV. You can pause it, you can rewind it, you can watch it as many times as you want. And that was just fascinating to me. So I must have watched Flash Gordon 6 times in one weekend. But I think the real key thing with my personal experience with this film is that I saw this before I saw Star Wars.
Wow.
Which is why I've never looked at Flash Gordon as this somewhat campy, lower budget rip-off of Star Wars. I saw that first, and then I think as a young child in my head, I was like, man, the guy who made Star Wars probably saw Flash Gordon and went, oh, if I can get a bigger budget, I can do... When in a way he kind of did, because George Lucas binged on the black and white TV serials of Flash Gordon. So,
right.
But yeah, in my young head, I thought that Star Wars the movie was a rip-off of the 1980 Flash Gordon movie.
Well, you're
Not
not
a rip-off,
wrong. I
I
mean,
should say.
it's all derivative, you know. And Flash
Yeah.
Gordon was kind of the original superhero and the original. Um, he was created in response to Buck Rogers, which came out a
Mhm.
few years before. But um, Buck Rogers didn't influence things like comic books and things like that the same way Flash Gordon did. When you look at even the opening credits in this film, where they
Mhm.
start with the comic panels and it's flashing, you know, and it's going really quick, and um, that I feel like that directly inspired the Marvel Cinematic Universe when they started making those movies and they started doing the same thing basically.
Yeah.
But you know, Flash Gordon wore a cape in the comic books or in the comic strips, and long before a lot of superheroes wore capes. So they based a lot in the tights and just the outfits and everything else. The Hawkmen inspired Hawkman from DC and the way he's dressed and his overall aesthetic. So it was a very inspiring property. And George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon film before he made Star Wars. And
Yeah,
when
that's
that
right.
didn't work out, he was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'll just write my own. And so when Star Wars hit, of course, you well know, as everybody else out there knows too, it started a almost like an avalanche of like everybody in Hollywood going, oh my God, we got to do that. We got to do some version of that. So let's get on the horn. And the first thing that Dino De Laurentiis did was he's like, oh, well, I got the rights to Flash Gordon. We're going to do this like Star Wars, but Flash Gordon. So we're going to get crossover appeal, but we're also going to get people that love Flash Gordon. So
Yeah.
it was a can't miss opportunity for a filmmaker. And very similar to you. I was breastfed this movie and Clash of the Titans. When I was, you know, 3.5, 4 years old, these were my two favorite movies, and it was just they were in constant rotation. We had HBO when I was a kid,
Yep.
and years before we ever had a VHS player, so these movies were just always on. And anytime they were on, everything else stopped. My world stopped, and it was like, this is what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, it was very much a part of my DNA growing up, and I feel like that's the beauty of this movie is that it's great for 40-year-olds or 40-year-olds or 80-year-olds can watch this movie, and that's really that magical Hollywood thing that they try to do is let's make a movie that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoyed it as much as I'm sure, you know, an 80-year-old watching that saying, "Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I loved Flash Gordon too." You know, and it was, you know, probably that same kind of wonder watching that movie because it's just so much fun. It's so energetic and it's so it like a lot of great movies or movies that end up becoming great in retrospect, it does exactly what they set out to do. And for
Yeah.
so many reasons, it shouldn't have worked, but it did. And even the things that don't work about it, you can look at them now, and everybody uses the word campy to describe this movie. And it is campy, but I feel like Lorenzo Simple was the screenwriter that wrote the script. He also wrote the '66 Batman show. He wrote the '76 King Kong. He did Sheena, the movie with Tanya Roberts. He
Hmm.
did Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery, the worst James Bond movie. Um, so he had a very campy resume. So when people
Yeah.
see that, they immediately are like, "Oh, this is the guy that did Batman '66." It's just like that. It's very much not that, but it's always put into that category.
Yeah.
Um,
It's got campy elements, but
mhm.
then there are other parts of it which are actually were a little bit scary when I was a kid watching them.
Oh yeah,
Some of the scenes on Arboria and things like that, and there's some very violent deaths in the film. Yeah, it's not all camp all the way through.
No. Oh no, and it's like you said, like Arboria is a nightmarish hellscape.
Yeah,
That's like the most scary forest planet I can imagine, and they had a much different idea for that. And then before the set designer and the production designer, Danilo Donati, who's apparently a legendary um, production designer guy, but he didn't even read the script, but he had like basically notes and was like, oh, okay, the Arborea, this is what I'm going to make it look like, and it looked, I mean, it looked like tree hell, and that's, I mean, not at all what they wanted. They wanted like this lush, kind of like Endor from Return of the Jedi, even though this was before that, but didn't end up looking that way. The monsters, the big thing that tries to eat Flash in the swamp, that thing used to terrorize me when I was a kid.
yep,
The wood beast, when they stick their hands into the wood stump. Yeah, there's a lot of grisly kind of deaths in this. A lot of stabbings.
yep.
The at the beginning, not to skip ahead too far, but the lab assistant Munson gets run over by an airplane.
Yeah.
He gets flattened, like Flash can't land an airplane, and just like whoops. And I mean, the only fanfare it gets is Zarkov saying, "Sorry, Munson,
Yep.
you missed your opportunity." And it's like, no, he got hit by a fucking airplane.
Exactly.
So
isn't a gun fired in that scene?
No, he threatens him. He like tries to get him in, like, Munson, come in, get into the rocket, and he like runs away, and he's like, get shot or go up in that thing. What's the difference? And Zarkov gives that great line where he's like, why are you running away? Because you're waving a fucking gun around. I'm gonna do, every time I mention Zarkov too, I'm gonna do that nasally voice that he has. That's sorry, Munson. Because he reminds me of Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
Where he's got that very like one giant nasal cavity when he talks. We're only interested in friendship. So yeah, not to skip ahead too far. I want to get us back and basically start from the beginning, and basically we'll walk through each scene and just kind of expound on it and dissect it a little bit. And I've got quite a bit, so we'll do that. Unlike last episode, I don't want to go 4 hours, and I know you've got a live stream to do after this, so we are on the clock. So the movie opens on as kind of, I always remembered this incorrectly. I always thought it was the Universal logo with the planet, with Earth spinning, and then I thought the reticle just came around it. But it opens with the Universal logo, and then after that, it starts with that Clytus, I'm bored. And then it has a different Earth that's very kind of claymation-y, and then they go right into it. I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. It's like, why not just do from the beginning? And of course, it's the big cartoon, laser rocket ship, Art Deco 50s, site on the Earth.
Yep.
And then, of course, Clytus calls it the planet Earth. And like, he's never heard that word before. But he says it with such a derogatory kind of a slime, where it's like, they call it Earth. But then they have a button that says earthquake. They hit a button that says earthquake to cause earthquakes on Earth. So it's that part always kind of struck me funny, because it's like, okay, does he say earthquake?
That's never occurred to me before.
There's a button.
What I like about this scene is that you hear Ming and you just mentioned his name,
Clytus. Yeah.
You hear their voices, but you don't see them. You just see some gloved hands kind of pressing buttons, and then all of a sudden, Earth is under almost attack. Earth comes under attack from Mother Nature, but Mother Nature is basically been controlled by an earthquake button on Mongo.
An earthquake. And of course, that voice is Peter Wingard, that voices and plays Clytus. One of the many great actors in this movie. He and you might know a lot more about this because it was a British show called Department S that he was in the 60s. He played a character called Jason King, and it was in the late 60s, early 70s, and he was this fashion icon, and he always wore like crushed velvet suits and cravats, and he had like the long, like almost like a Fu Manchu mustache and just got wild hair. Apparently he was the inspiration that Mike Myers had for Austin Powers. He was a novelist that becomes a secret agent in that show, and he was like a big deal during that time. And when Flash Gordon came out, he was having trouble getting work because he had kind of fallen out of favor, or fallen out of fashion, I guess. And but yeah, he was, and he wasn't crazy about being in makeup with a mask on the entire movie, but he still gives that just beautiful vocal performance as Clytus, and it's so menacing and just kind of snidely whiplash. He's just got that kind of like, yes, pity.
You can tell just from his line delivery that this guy's a scumbag.
Yeah. He was just, I mean, before they even introduce him, you're like, oh yeah, that's a bad guy. Yeah, no good guys talk like that. And so Ming says, I'm bored, I want a plaything. What can you offer me? And Clytus says, oh, well, I've got this obscure little bullshit planet in the SK system. Let's screw with it. Let's hit it with a beam, cause some earthquakes, some hot hail, whatever the fuck that is. And just kind of screw with them and see what happens. And so that's basically what the attack is all about, is just Ming being bored. So they start that. You get that pounding drum line from Queen, that dum, 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 and then you just,
which I believe is the first part of the soundtrack that Brian May actually came up with.
Yeah,
is that kind of beat? Yeah.
Yep, that driving, almost like a heartbeat, drum line. And of course, Queen, we haven't even talked about yet. They do a fantastic job on the soundtrack and the score. There's a lot of, even the parts of this soundtrack and the arrangement that isn't an actual song. All of the little interstitial things, Freddie Mercury moaning and doing that, and I think it's called Aura's theme or something like that.
Yeah.
And just all the little pieces of music in this are just brilliant. They're just beautifully done. And but yeah, it just to get the Queen soundtrack out of the way, because I know we'll skip over it if not. It's just fantastic. Everybody remembers the Flash from the main theme. I think the Hero, which is the song that plays at the end, is the best. That, in a close second, would be the Attack of the Hawkmen when they attack the rocket. Those are my two favorite pieces in the entire movie. But I also love the football fight too.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. That. But yes, not to skip ahead. So they start screwing with the Earth. Let's see. The opening credits, comic panels, obviously, we touched on that. When we first see Flash, we meet him and Dale, and they are in Dark Harbor, New York, is what it's supposed to be. I don't know if that's a real place. I didn't look that up. But it's supposed to be in New York. It's actually shot in Scotland, and I've never seen a scene in a movie that I could tell was in Europe more than that scene. It just, maybe I'm wrong, but it looked like it was about to rain.
York.
I was like, that's not New York. That's Scotland, or that's that's the English countryside somewhere. I don't know. So they meet. They apparently both stayed at the Dark Harbor Inn, and they both get on this charter plane, and they have like they're the only two passengers, so of course they're going to talk. So it's kind of a lame meet cute because they were going to meet anyway. Because I mean, you can't sit on a plane next to somebody and not be like, "Hey, how you doing? My name's Flash. It's written on my T-shirt," which I always thought was funny too. Because he's like, "My name's Flash."
I don't know, man. I've been on a lot of flights on my own, and I never speak to the passenger next to me.
With just two of you, though,
I need to go to the toilet, but I don't introduce myself. When I'm on a plane, I don't want to talk to anyone.
I'm like that on most planes, but apparently they had caught each other's eye the night before, so it kind of they set that up. It works, and the pilot's up front doing. Oops, crap! Hold on 1 second. I lost my. Never mind. I got a spare. The pilots are up front. They're reading the magazine with Flash on the cover. So they established that he is the quarterback of the New York Jets. And the original Flash Gordon. Here's some trivia for you. Do you know what kind of sport the original Flash Gordon played?
Polo?
He was a polo player, which was much more prominent in the 30s than football. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting little piece of trivia. He was also rich in the comic books too. So, kind of like a little bit of Tony Stark in him. But he's reading that. Flash, they hit a little bit of turbulence or whatever. Flash goes up to check it out. They kind of explain like, hey, everything's fine, whatever. Oh yeah, would you mind autographing this magazine for my kid? And what's the kid's name? Do you remember this?
I can't remember.
Can you autograph it for my son? Sure. What's his name? Buzz.
That's it.
The line makes me laugh every fucking time because it's like in 1980 there was no kid going by the name Buzz.
Yep.
Like, what's his name? Buzz. It's so out of whack. I don't know. And
then he goes into the back of the plane once he signs the autograph, and the turbulence gets worse.
Yep.
And then the oddest thing happens. He goes back up to the front of the cabin, and the pilot and co-pilot have been sucked out through the windshield.
Right. Well, right before that, though, we'll get to that in a second. He goes back and then he tells Dale, like, everything's fine. It's turbulence. And she's like, oh, and she's freaking out. And she's like, talk to me, say something, get my mind off this. And he's like, oh, it's just a little turbulence. Everything's going to be fine. And she's like, you're just saying that to get my mind off this. Within 2 seconds of asking him to do something, he does it. And then she's like, you're just saying that because I just told you to say that. And it's like, he's doing what you just asked him to do. Some of the worst dialogue writing I think I've ever seen in a movie. That's like George Lucas level, like, hold me like you did on the sands of Naboo or by the lake in Naboo when we had only our love. And it's just awful. But anyway, yes. So then Ming magic happens. Laughing evil red cloud zaps the two pilots out. And the window's broken, so it's almost like he reaches in and grabs them. It's implied. They don't show that, but yeah, it's got like get out of here,
Yeah.
So he takes the pilots out again, just to kind of fuck with the Earth, I guess. And Flash goes up, and then he's like, "Oh my god, holy shit! What's going on?" And then he's had flying lessons, so he can kind of crash them, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. Takes us up to there. What do you remember after that?
So but before they crash land, it's kind of Zarkov's. Is it I was going to say laboratory then. It's like an observatory.
Yeah. I've got questions about that place too.
Yeah,
because it's got like a greenhouse. Like there's like different. It looks like an observatory, but there's like greenhouse sections, but and they're full of plants, but they're all dead. Like it's all just like fronds and things, and everything's like brown and dead. And it's, I guess it's like the mad scientist kind of thing, but it's like he's not a plant guy. Like he's a NASA guy. Like what's he doing with all these plants? Apparently not watering them. I mean,
it's a lot of choice, but like all of the sets in this film are so memorable. They stand out, and even when they don't make sense, like this here with all these dead plants everywhere. We have a like a bit of an introductory scene with Zarkov there before the plane crashes. I can't remember the chronological order in the film.
Right. He has his little introduction basically to the rest of the audience, and he's talking to Munson. He gets woken up, and he's like, "Oh, wait, there's something going on with the moon," and he's been right all these years. He's always known that there was going to be some kind of attack, and it's coming to pass. And of course, he's excited, and he's like, "Oh, cool! Now I've got the coordinates. Here's my big plan. I've got this rocket that I built just for this occasion. Now that I know where it's coming from in this attack on the Earth, I'm going to take you, my pudgy lab assistant, and we're going to fly up in a rocket with no supplies whatsoever, and we're going to a counterattack." And all he's got for weaponry is a 38 snub nose in his jacket. So his big plan, I mean, he built, what was easily, even in 1980, that would have been a $500,000 rocket, at least. A rocket built for two that looks like a dildo from the 50s or something. And it's got like that 40s sci-fi, spaceship effect, like all of the ships in this movie have that kind of old school future tech to them. Like they have that kind of Art Deco quality. They're really cool, except for the one that looks like a wasp. I don't like that one. But Clytus's ship looks like a big angry bumblebee or something. And so they fly up. That was his big plan, is fly up with a 38 special and attack space people that can affect the weather. It's pretty thin.
Yeah.
Pretty thin. Pretty thin. So of course Munson's like, "No, screw that. I'm out of here." And so he goes to escape as Flash crash lands into the greenhouse, crushing Munson in the most uncelebrated fashion ever. He literally goes like, "Whoa!" and he like jumps, and then planes like just parks right on his ass.
Yep.
And as a kid, I always thought Munson like got up and then ran away after that. I never it never occurred to me that he was dead. But watching it now, I'm like, "Oh no, he's dead." Like there's no after show for him. Did you recognize the guy that plays the lab assistant?
I do. Raiders of the Lost Ark?
That is William Hootkins. He is a bit player, character actor. I kind of hate that term, but he was in Star Wars. He was Porkins.
Aren't all actors character actors?
That's why I hate that, because whenever you hear character actor, it's kind of like saying, "Oh, he's a human person."
Yeah.
Like, everybody's a character actor, but it's basically a derogatory saying like, "Well, they've never been a star, but they're an actor who plays characters that you might recognize, but probably not, because they're not famous. They're not a big star." It's kind of a backhanded compliment to call somebody a character actor.
Yeah.
And I learned that probably 20 years ago from talking to actors that are like, "Yeah, never call an actor a character actor." That's oof. Yeah, that's like calling a woman, "Hey, you're a not ugly woman." Thank you. Thank you, I guess. I don't know. So he was in Star Wars as Porkins. He was in Raiders of the Lost Ark as the top men.
Yep.
Government agent guy. He was in '89 Batman as Eckhart. the corrupt detective, and he was also in a movie, a great little obscure sci-fi movie called Hardware from 1991, I believe, where he plays this. He gives a really great performance. He plays this crazy neighbor that's like a sexual psychopath or whatever. If you've never seen that movie, it's basically like Terminator in an apartment.
Yep.
So
Okay.
yeah, a very interesting movie. Australian movie, by the way. So
Ah.
yeah. So a little taste of home there. When they crash land, Dale has a very interesting line that I never caught until I watched this with subtitles. And when they crash and they get out of the plane, she jumps into to Flash's arms to get out of the plane, and he like kind of carries her and helps her down. And she says something like, "Hold me for a minute, and then drop me, and I'll kiss the ground." And again, it's just really clunky dialogue, and
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing nobody would ever say to another human being. Like, hold me for a minute, and then put me on the ground, and I'll kiss it. It just really it makes me almost think that there was a translation problem. Like because a lot of the crew on this movie were Italian.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the script master, the what are they called? The script coach or whatever, where they make sure that they're abiding by the script, was Italian, and they had like a translation error somewhere. I don't know.
A few times.
Yeah. There's a few lines that are really clunky in this. So what happens after that?
Well, basically, Zarkov can't take Munson with him now, so he, at gunpoint, tries to herd Flash and Dale into the rocket with him, and I think as they're going in, he has a bit of a tussle with Flash, throws him to the ground, bangs his head, and ignites the rocket. So now all of a sudden, the three of us, this unlikely holy trinity of weird characters, are flying their 1950s dildo to Mongo.
Yeah, they are not a special ops team that I would put together. A football player, a travel agent, and a crazy ass scientist.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he basically absconds with them, kidnaps them, forces them in there by saying that there's a telephone in there. And like you said, and I think Flash shoves Zarkov and his head hits the ignition button, which is like a big button that says ignition. And so they take off, they strap themselves in, they pass out from the G-forces or whatever. And once they get to space, there's this beautiful transition from when the rocket engines stop and Brian May strums the guitar as they hit the outer atmosphere, and it's like bling, and it's just so beautiful. I love that scene and how just how fluid it is, and the rocket's still kind of drifting.
Yeah, the sound design on that little sequence is expertly done.
Yeah.
But also it then becomes quite visually arresting as well as they start to go. The rocket starts to kind of spiral through all these amazing colors that are on the screen. You know, we're entering Mongo, which is one of the most colorful planets ever committed to cinema, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, and as a kid, I always thought, as soon as you get into space, that's what space looks like. It looks like a blacklight poster and a lava lamp, and that's apparently, obviously not what it looks like until you get into really deep space. But so there's a wormhole that I guess is like the Imperial Vortex, and it's not too far away from Earth, and it's what Ming is using as like his portal to kind of like zap the Earth. So that's the coordinates that they're on, and that's what they go into. And as soon as the dream sequence, when they're all asleep in the shuttle, it's like that kind of, listing, dreamy guitar. And then it's kind of like the calm before the storm, because as soon as that vortex catches them and they start swirling, it's like, and the drums hit, and then they're just, it's like they're going through an acid trip. Of a storm or whatever. And then we're introduced to Clytus and his air traffic controllers or whoever they are, and they describe what it is, and he says, "Okay, bring it through the sea of fire, land it safely." Like you said, the production design on this is just gorgeous. Like the colors, and I remember just watching that and just being like just in awe. Especially as a kid, just like, whoa, like that's what outer space looks like. And they get to Mongo really quick. Like they don't really take their time. It's almost like blast off, boom, here we are.
Yep.
And they kind of don't miss a beat. The scene when they land and the rocket kind of and it lands, and then they're like, whoa, what's going on? And they wake up. I love that scene because they're inverted and there's the little circular window. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
And so they're like sitting there talking to each other. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. And they're having this whole conversation and you can see through the window. And that's when Ming's soldiers are kind of like walking around, and like one of them puts his face down in the window. And I love that through scene that you can see what's going on and that they can't. I thought that was really, really well done. So they get out, and what's the first thing that Flash says to these scary ass looking aliens?
Something along the lines of, "Hi, I'm Flash Gordon, quarterback of the New York Jets," or something.
he gets out and he says, "Hi, we're from Earth." and I really think, I mean, a lot of people have talked about this, and I knew we would eventually get into it, but Flash Gordon is just a guy. He may be the first superhero, but he doesn't have any superpowers. He's a good athlete. He's strong, obviously, and that's it. I mean, he's not exceptionally smart. He's basically, his biggest power is his nobility and his virtue, and how he's basically just a really good dude. And he's always got this moral compass that's all the way to one side, where it's like, no, I'm going to do the right thing. And even though these guys are scary and they're like walking up and they got weapons, he's like, "Hi, we're from Earth."
Yeah.
And it's just so innocent, and it's the first time you really see, like, I mean, they establish earlier that he's a nice guy, but it's the first time that you really see that, oh shucks, like, hey guys, what's going on? And that's really his power. And that's what he uses to kind of get everybody on his side. And in a lot of ways, that's the best part of humanity. And that's what wins out. But again, we'll cover that going forward.
Yeah.
But that's another scene that always makes me laugh, where it's like, "Hi, we're from Earth," and then they shoot out the magic gun that shoots the hand that like grabs his hand and then flips him over, and then grabs him around the neck. And again, just as it establishes how goofy and innocent he is, it establishes how militant and not fucking around that these guys are.
Yeah.
Because like, hey, you're going to introduce yourself. I'm going to introduce myself by grabbing you around the neck with a laser hand. So
a floating, not floating, a firing gold metal hand. Gonna shoot it out and flip you over. Yeah.
Well, it comes out of a gun that has an eyeball on it too. So then they're taken into the castle, into the Ming's palace or whatever, and the first thing you notice is how Art Deco, I know I've said that word a few times already, but it's very heavy here. Like it looks like a nightclub in the 40s or something. Like it's just the bright reds and the golds, and everything's lacquered, and it's just really, really beautiful set design. And that's a huge set. When they walk into that grand hall where all the creatures and everything are congregated, that's a gigantic set. And I want to say it was at Elstree or Pinewood or one of those big studios in London, to have a set that big, and just gorgeous. I mean, they got the big sculptures of Ming, the big black ones with the gold outline. It looks, they kind of established the aesthetic there is like, it's almost like Art Deco Nazis because they've got
Yeah.
jack boots on and the bright red and the gold, like military style.
But it's that combination of this incredible set design and mind blowing costume design.
Yeah.
All the different costumes in there as they're sort of walking in, and that's the moment, even more so than the trip in the rocket and landing. Like that's the moment when I go, right, this is Mongo. This is all these different races of people, and to a 5-year-old kid watching this on a Betamax, it was cool as hell.
Well, it was very evocative of like Star Trek and how all the different aliens looked really different in Star Wars Cantina, where every single race of Mongo was in that hall. So it was a great kind of introduction. And like you get the black and white Q-tip people, and you get the little people that are wearing like the drapery, the wide shouldered drapery things that have the swords, and the Hawkmen and the Ardentians, and just everybody looks different and they look like they're from a different world. And yeah, visually it's just a absolute Thanksgiving Day feast for the eyes, because it's just every color is there, and that's hard to pull off. It really is. It's really hard to pull off. When you've got that many different colors, at the same time. The Hawkmen are kind of introduced prominently, even though they're not. Clytus says, like, the tributes of the Hawkmen would be first. The Hawkmen, I love their aesthetic, except for the wings. That's one of the biggest spots of contention when people watch this. And they're like, oh, look how cheesy those wings look. They really do. Like, I mean, they look like a dinner plate or something like that. They look so cheap. And just not like wings at all. But as far as gripes go, it's a tiny one for me. Let's see. We are finally shown Clytus with that awesome Doctor Doom, Darth Vader motif that he has going on. Something nobody ever talks about. I love his fixed gold right arm, where it's always just like it's almost like an old war wound or something, where he's just like, yep, I've got a gimped up arm. I don't use it for anything. I thought that was a really cool touch.
We have to talk about Ming himself. This is the first time we see Ming makes this grand entrance in a absolutely stunning costume. And
Ming's
Max von Sydow.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those times when they literally have taken Ming from the comic and put him on screen. Like, talk about perfect casting.
Yep. Oh yeah, Max von Sydow is such a great actor, and he had done so many things before this.
Exorcist.
He was the Exorcist. He was he played Jesus in The Greatest Story Ever Told. He was in 3 Days of the Condor. He was in Never Say Never Again, the same terrible James Bond movie that Lorenzo Simple wrote, as Blofeld. And he was Conan's. He was in Conan the Barbarian as King Osric. He was in Dune. A lot of younger audience will recognize him from Game of Thrones as the Three-Eyed Raven. He's just had a really, really well-respected career. Was a really, really good actor. And he has such every line he delivers as Ming has this like sexual intensity to it. And I never really realized it until watching it through for the episode here. He said especially when he's interrogating Zarkov, he's trembling because it's just a little bit. It's like he's getting off on explaining his kink to Zarkov, where it's like, every 1,000 years, I test a system's geography here, whatever he says, earthquakes, craters in the wilderness. And if they're taken as natural, he leaves them alone. But he's just him describing it. He's like, yes. And he's got this like he's just, orgasmic trying to explain it. And he delivers kind of every line with like this sensuality. And he does a lot with his hands, which story has it that Brian Blessed gave him an acting note where he's like, use your hands a lot, because Ming's a magician and magicians use their hands, and they do a lot of like hand ticks and things like that. And so you'll see Ming do a lot of this, like,
yeah.
And just like he's like, yeah, it's like he's testing out his gloves. But yeah, he is just awesome in this movie. Always loved him as an actor. And even when
it's interesting you mentioned him, that he was in Conan the Barbarian. That was also produced by Dino De Laurentiis. And
yep.
At one point, they were considering Schwarzenegger for the role of Flash.
Yes. We haven't even talked about Sam Jones yet, but that's in my Sam Jones notes, is he beat out Arnold Schwarzenegger, and pretty much an unknown Arnold Schwarzenegger, because in 1979, when they would have been casting this, he had only done Pumping Iron and I think The Villain, a Western where he plays Handsome Stranger, and just a couple of TV shows and things like that. Hercules in New York. Like, he wasn't well known. And he also beat out Kurt Russell for this role, which is interesting because it's the same year that Kurt Russell did Escape from New York. And until then, Kurt Russell had never really done a lot of action. So it's interesting. I'm always fascinated with what could have been. I can totally see Kurt Russell in this role of Flash Gordon. I cannot see Arnold Schwarzenegger in the role of Flash Gordon, especially at that time, because he had a very limited grasp of English at that point. He was just very, very limited. And it's like, hi, we are from Earth. I can't see him being like, call off the attack on Earth.
He may as well just get out of the rocket ship and go, I can't do a Schwarzenegger impression, but he may as well just get out of the rocket ship and go like, hi, we are from Austria.
Hi, I am from Austria. It was. But yeah, Von Sydow is I think perfectly cast as Ming, and he's doing very much a Ming from the comics, like you said, like from the old serials where he was kind of a especially in that time, pre-war and everything, he was like a cartoon of Asians and like the evil, like Fu Manchu style Asian bad guy, And of course that's very dated now, and it's pretty racist.
It is.
I feel like he pulls it off though, where it's not, he's not doing Andy Rooney from the movies where he's like, oh, hello, and he's not doing that.
Yeah. I think the fact, he's, so he has the mustache and, like the Fu Manchu beard, but for me as a child watching it, I never kind of picked up on that,
right?
Kind of that aspect of it because of who they cast in the role.
Yep.
If they had gone with the buck teeth and a pair of glasses, it could have gone horribly wrong. The movie certainly wouldn't be as rewatchable today.
Well, and I think that you're right, and I think it's one instance where whitewashing was a good thing, because even if they had hired an Asian person to play Ming, I feel like it would have fed into that stereotype. And the fact that they cast Von Sydow, and I want to say he's Swedish, but he's I want to say he's got blue eyes, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's got blue eyes through this movie, and so you don't feel that. You don't feel like he's a like a stereotype in any way. He's just evil space wizard,
Yeah. It's not John Wayne playing Genghis Khan.
Yeah, that's whitewashing gone way wrong.
Yeah.
And so Max von Sydow enters. He's wearing that awesome, one of his many costume changes in this movie. I feel like every scene that he's in, they have him in a different wardrobe.
Yep.
And a lot of them are similar. They're just different colored. And I want to say some of these weighed like 65 pounds because of all the metal on them and things like that. It was like walking around in like chainmail, essentially.
Yeah.
And some of them are more military looking with the jack boots and the knee-high boots and the skull cap or whatever. And some of them, I mean, he looks like Lady Gaga going to the Oscars or something. I mean, they're like straight up ball gowns and these big like fans coming up behind his head, and very ornate, and a lot of symbolism on the costumes too. Even Clytus, he has that, I guess, like the Ming symbol is very similar to like a Masonic symbol, where it's an odd little like A shape or whatever.
Yeah.
So he comes onto the scene. He walks in a grand entrance, and our three heroes basically see, okay, this is the big bad. This is the main bad guy, and he's kind of an asshole, but he is completely in charge. And we get the display of magic that he shows from his ring with the Prince of Ardentia, Prince Thun, or Thun. Prince Thun is how they say his name. Interesting bit of trivia. Prince Thun in the comics and in the cartoon, the Filmation cartoon, was the Lion Man. And that's Prince Thun.
Yep.
So they forewent having him be a Lion Man, which would have been awesome in this movie. Yep. And he basically falls on the sword, both literally and figuratively, as a sacrifice to show, how ruthless and how powerful Ming is. Then, of course, Sam Jones delivers the line, "This Ming is a psycho."
Just with the prince there, when he falls on the sword, just another little detail that his blood is like a metallic green or something. It's not
blue.
A blue. It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another of those little elements that, as a kid, I'm like, oh wow, we really are on another planet. They don't even have the same color blood as us. That was something that always struck me when I was a child.
Yeah, that's the "we're not in Kansas anymore" Toto moment. Yeah. And it's a very simple little thing. They could have made that red and it would have just flown right over everybody's head. But you're right. Like making that blue is like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't happening in some weird pocket of our world. This is a different world completely.
Yep.
And it kind of shows not only the viewer, but our three heroes like, oh yeah, we're like way out there. And we also skipped the Baron and Voltan have their little standoff over the ice jewel. So they established that Prince Baron and Prince Voltan do not like each other. And that's important because of what happens later when they team up. Ming is a psycho, which gets Ming's attention. And Princess Aura walks in at the same time. And we're introduced to her. She kind of slinks over to Ming. And she's introduced as basically the sexiest thing in the universe. And she's a very good looking woman, but she's also just the way she moves and the way she talks and everything. She might as well be holding up a sign going, "Hey, look how fucking sexy I am." If you didn't notice, I'm fucking sexy. And she has a pet on a leash named Fellini. Fellini, of course, after the famous Italian director Federico Fellini, say that 5 times fast, who almost directed this movie.
That would have been a very, very different film.
That would have been a wacky film.
Yeah. And I think it's a great moment to actually very quickly discuss the guy who does direct this.
Mm-hmm. Mike Hodges. Mm-hmm.
There was nothing on his resume that said he would be a good director for Flash Gordon.
Yep.
You know, at the time he was probably most well known for directing the original Get Carter with Michael Caine, which was a very down to earth, gritty British.
Gritty British.
I like British.
I like British for breakfast.
Yeah, a very down to earth, gritty British thriller. Which, by the way, is a terrific film. If you haven't
I may do
seen,
that one. I may do that one on the podcast because that's an actiony movie. It's kind of a thriller, but it's
yeah,
that's a really good one. The remake with
yeah,
Stallone is pure garbage, but the Michael Caine that one is fantastic.
yeah.
But Mike Hodges does a great job directing this one, and he was a respected director. He wasn't.
Oh yeah,
He wasn't he was out of left field, but he wasn't like like what this guy? Because I feel like at
no,
that point,
Get Carter was
that was
very
72.
well received critically.
Yep.
It's a really good film. Yeah, he had credentials. It just but then again, when you think about it, at the time, unless you had George Lucas, like most directors would seem like a choice from left field, probably. So yeah,
Yep. Yeah, he actually replaced a director named Nicholas Rogue, who I don't nothing jumps to mind. He's done some other stuff, but I can't think of anything else that he did. But De Laurentiis was not happy with him as a director, so they've replaced him about a quarter of the way through. But Hodges did okay, and I feel like he did what they wanted to do. He did what Dino wanted, and I think it worked. Let's see, where were we? Oh, Ming calls Dale forward, does his little weird massaging the bottle thing, magic hands, and Flash, of course, delivers the immortal line. Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets.
yeah.
Like any of these fucking aliens are going to know what the New York Jets are, he might as well have just said Flash Gordon, blah, 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 fla, 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 blah. Like, what does that mean? New York Jets? What's a quarterback?
Yeah, he is lucky. He's like when you were talking before about the first superhero, and it's his completely virtuistic nature that makes him a hero, because in this he's pretty dumb.
Yeah. Well, he's just that lovable dumb do-gooder, and well, in Sam Jones's defense, his almost entire performance in this was overdubbed with ADR from a different actor. It was I have his name here somewhere. It's called what's his name? Peter Marinker. They didn't know who did this voice for a long time until recently. But he was an actor, and then he did a lot of voice work. But they overdubbed him in post-production because of Sam Jones not getting along with Dino De Laurentiis. They had a huge fight, and Sam actually quit this movie before they were even done. So that's why it's seamlessly edited, but there's some scenes that would have been in it that he never got to shoot. And it's the reason why that we didn't get a Flash 2 and Flash 3, because contrary to popular belief, this movie it wasn't a flop. This movie cost $25 million. It made $47 million worldwide. So it wasn't a huge hit. It wasn't Star Wars, but it was a moderate hit, and it was enough of a hit to where they had 2 other movies planned. But when that feud happened, it fell apart, and they were just like, "Yep, screw it, never mind."
Yeah, and I will say it was. I remember it being insanely popular in the UK. This film was really big in England.
Absolutely, yeah. It found a lot of legs over there because it was pretty much an Italian production, but it had a lot of roots in English cinema with a lot of the actors that were in it, and with the James Bond connection. There's 3 James Bond alumni in this movie. Timothy Dalton, Max von Sydow, and who's the third one? Shit, I can't remember who the third one is.
A Bond girl?
No. Oh, Topol.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was in For Your Eyes Only. So yeah, those are the three. And technically, Robbie Coltrane is in this movie too, but he has no lines, and he's at the very beginning in the airport. And if you blink, you'll miss him. So I don't count him.
Okay.
Yeah. Hagrid himself is in this movie, but literally he's just like a guy at the airport, and you see him like put a suitcase in the jet, and that's it.
Yeah.
So then we go to the football fight, and take us through this scene.
I can't remember exactly how it all starts, but Ming, I think he brings in kind of some of his troops, doesn't he?
Well, Ming says to Dale, he's like, "Take her away for our pleasure," and he has this like, "Aha!" like, "Take her away," and when he delivers that line, Flash stands in front of her. He was like, "No way, Ming, she's with me." And then his guards come in, and he starts fighting him off. And then
and his guards actually come in. It's like the Mongo version of American football players.
Yeah, they've got the shoulder pads and the face, basically the flat face masks, and there's like, and they come in, and he sees them, and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, these are like football players." And then I can't remember how he gets the egg.
Someone
Zarkov
throws it to him.
Zarkov throws him the egg.
Yeah,
and because I think Dale grabs one and then hits one of the guards with it and knocks him out. So then Zarkov's like, "Oh shit!" Well, he grabs an egg and he's like, "Here, Flash," and it lands in his lap, and he's like, "Football shaped thing, football guys, okay." And one has to wonder: is Flash concussed at this point?
Yeah,
he's dreamy eyed, and he just got his ass kicked by a bunch of aliens. So I feel like he goes right into what he knows, and he's on autopilot at that point, just like, "I'm gonna play football with these guys."
Yep. And this is such a bonkers, but such a fun scene. Not just kind of what's going on with Flash and the guards, but also it keeps cutting away to the people looking on. And I just love that moment where Voltan just sort of he whacks one of them on the head and they collapse, and he's like,
all of them. And I feel like they're showing how subversive all of the inhabitants of Mongo are, where they're just like, "Yeah, this is awesome, but we also kind of get to take a shot at the guards,"
Yeah.
And Voltan trips one. It's the first thing he does. He trips him, and then and then the guy gets up and he like, bonk, hits him on the head with his club. And then he's like laughing as he does it. And at that point, you can't help but fall in love with Voltan, where you're like, okay, he's not a bad guy. He's just kind of a gruff asshole, but he's a good dude. Like, and then when the guy gets back up and he's like, "Ugh," and he's like, bonk, hits him again. And even his men, like the Hawkmen next to him, are like laughing. They're like, "This guy." But even the little dwarf, the brightly colored dwarf aliens, they have the swords, and like one of them falls down, and he's like, and he like sticks the guy right in the ass with the sword. So they're all like kind of getting in their licks, and I love that scene. That scene to me sets up what this movie is, and it's just, we're here to have fun.
Yep.
Suspend your disbelief. Put your feelings at the door. This movie's fun. Don't try to explain.
It's incredible how the music was almost composed to hit the beats, and you get all of a sudden Dale Arden is literally an American high school cheerleader. Where she's walking on the side.
Go Flash, go!
Go Flash, go! Go Flash, go! It's lovable insanity.
Absolutely. Well, and you kind of get a little bit of her. That's like giving a character backstory without giving them backstory. It's like, oh, yeah, wait, she used to be a cheerleader. If she's doing that shit just instinctively, like, she's kind of doing what she knows too. And Zarkov is it. We haven't touched on this either yet, but Zarkov kidnapped them at gunpoint, and as soon as they land in Mongo, she's like muckling onto him, and they're all best friends at that point. So it's
Yep.
like, wow, that's a pretty quick turnaround from, hey, you just brought us into space, asshole. Like, what the hell? So then Zarkov's joining
Something
in too.
happens when you fly through an orifice in a dildo.
Yeah, they had a lot of dildo time together. So
Yeah,
I guess that's where real friendships occur, is inside space dildos.
Yep.
But yeah, Zarkov's joining in. He's like grabbing more of those eggs, and he's like feeding Flash. He's like, here, catch. And Flash is really doing his damage until he gets hit in the head with one of those balls, or the eggs, and knocks him out again. Now he's super concussed. And of course, everybody's like, oh, because that was the first time anybody's really stood up to Ming in God knows how long.
Yep.
So Flash is in the dungeon at this point. They sentence him to death. He has his little time with Dale where they, confess their feelings for each other and do the whole, goodbye. And
while he's wearing the tightest pair of black leather budgie smugglers.
Yep, he's got some black leather man panties on.
Yep.
Yeah. So they have there's a really good ethereal kind of score in that too, with Freddie Mercury doing that kind of angelic cry.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful little piece. And Clytus is there, of course, and he's like, you guys are pathetic and stupid and blah, blah, blah. They say their goodbyes. They walk Flash out to the gas chamber in the Great Hall. Sam Jones has a great little piece of acting that flies completely under the radar. As they're walking him out, right before he goes into the gas chamber, he looks up, and you can't tell who he's looking at, but he makes a face kind of like and he kind of looks up and goes, and he gives a little nod, and he kind of gives a like, sorry, like, this is it. But he's it's like a resolute, like, okay, I'm dealing with the fact I'm about to die. But he gives a reassuring kind of a nod and a, like, it'll be okay. And he's looking at Dale when he does that. But they don't over accentuate it at all. And if you're not really watching that movie, you don't catch it. But it's a wonderful little piece of physical acting. And of course, the horny surgeon, the Imperial surgeon, owes Princess Aura a favor, and she doesn't want Flash killed because she wants to fuck him. And so the horny Imperial surgeon's like, no, wait, I want to keep fucking Princess Aura like we did last weekend. So I'm going to give this guy a special shot that's going to keep him from dying. Which, of course, brings him back to life after he's gassed. As he's being gassed, did you catch what Clytus does?
No.
Clytus is watching, and as they're gassing, right before they gas Flash, he takes a black handkerchief and he waves it in front of his nose, like to sniff it. That belongs to Princess Aura.
Ah.
So he's got a secret kind of harbored thing for her. And that kind of falls into that whole sexy sensuality, kind of a dominatrixy thing that the hierarchy of Mongo has going on. And it's a little bitty thing. And I learned that watching the Life After Flash documentary where they interviewed Peter Wingard, and he mentions that. And that was his idea, to have him kind of sniff that. And he does it, I want to say, twice.
Yeah. Okay.
And but yeah, it's a neat little, again, a little piece of physical acting where it's like, here's a little nod to you guys if you're paying attention.
See, they had some really good potential for a sequel here without Flash Gordon. They could have just had, the swingers of Mongo.
Wild women of Mongo.
Yeah.
Well, and with him, being Jason King, they could have had a swinging, sexy party.
Yeah.
So after that, Aura smuggles Flash out of Mongo City and takes him to Arboria to Baron to get help. And Zarkov gets conditioned as a Imperial agent. Let's talk about this scene.
This is nightmarish. It's reminds me somewhat of A Clockwork Orange. But yes, some of those images that flash up on the screen, like this is, yeah, it's terrifying.
To me, it's a lot like the Clockwork Orange scene mixed with the boat ride in Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
it's got that crazy kind of like random shit going on, and there's a lot of animal images that are quickly subliminally flashed or whatever. A lot of birds. I counted like 5 or 6 different bird images. There's an owl, there's a hawk, and I don't know what the significance is other than maybe the Hawkmen, but a lot of birds. And of course the Nazi stuff and everything else.
Yep.
And Clytus has the little line where he's like, when they show Hitler and he's like, oh, now he showed promise.
Yes.
Just to accentuate how evil these guys are.
Yeah.
They loved Hitler. Ming has a really great monologue when he's talking to Zarkov, and we touched on it earlier about how he explains his reasoning and his modus operandi. And I just love that bit of acting from von Sydow, because he just, it's hard to act that excited about what he's saying, but he does it just enough where he's like shaky when he delivers some of those lines where he's like, yes. And I love watching good actors act good and or act well, I should say. I love that scene. To me, that's the kind of scene that, as an actor, I think it was Frank Langella. I'm paraphrasing, but he said that his favorite role in any movie that he's ever done was Skeletor in Masters of the Universe, because it's so hard to find roles to play a villain that's just bad, like just evil for no reason, just to dial it up to 11 and just be as evil as you can possibly get. And there's so few and far between to be able to play those characters, and you can just let it rip. And I love watching that.
Yeah, and that really is what we get here. Like I imagine that Max von Sydow probably looks back. Well,
he's dead.
I've read a lot about the actual. I think he really enjoyed this performance, but I've also heard that this production, no one liked it when Dino came on set.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it was kind of like Darth Vader walking onto the bridge. You know, it's like, oh shit, am I gonna get fired now just because? Yeah. He was a very mercurial director or producer, and you know, for better or for worse, like this movie shouldn't have worked in so many ways, and it's a beautiful mess, and it all the dots connect for this movie against everyone's better judgment.
Yep.
We're also in this scene introduced to General Kala, played by the most Italian name I've ever heard in my life, Mariangela Malato.
Yep.
And she does a really good job. She's the kind of monotone lieutenant for General Clytus, even though she's a general. The only really thing that I would know her from is a movie called Swept Away, which she plays this kind of stuck-up heiress that ends up marooned on a desert island with a lowly crew member of her ship or whatever, and they end up having this like weird love affair. It's a popular Italian movie. I think Giancarlo
Didn't
Giannini.
Guy Ritchie remake that with Madonna?
Guy Ritchie remade it with Madonna. That's exactly right. And it was really bad, but the original, not great, but it's well known for some reason.
Yeah.
But and you wouldn't really tell from watching General Kala, but she was a very pretty woman, very very striking, kind of stern looking, but just very almost like a statue. Like she just had a
Yeah.
very very beautiful face, and I think she's great and kind of intimidating in this role. She's very just her line delivery, and she's very like proper, and you can kind of see how evil she is when Clytus is like, program him to level 3. I don't think the human brain can handle anything above that. And she's like, got it, level 3. As soon as he leaves, she's like, level 6. If his brain explodes, fuck it.
Yep.
So yeah, she will be talked about later as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
Some great line delivery later on in the film.
That nightmare scene of him getting his memories stolen. As a kid, it was scary to me. As an adult, it's absolutely terrifying. Like, imagine having all of your memories just sucked out of your head. Yeah, that's nightmare fuel.
The birth of your children, and
yeah,
there are hospital scenes, and you start to hear the heartbeat starts racing, and
well, he sees his dad, and he's like, "Papa, Papa," and it's. I mean, they don't touch on his entire life, obviously, but it's. He goes through like obviously what he had to go through, and they hint that he was an escaping Jew in World War II.
Yep.
And it's a very powerful scene, as scary as it is.
That's the scene that you just have to. When people say, "Oh, that movie's pure camp," you're like, "Well, watch that scene."
Yeah,
ain't nothing campy about that. That's almost a horror.
Yeah,
a sci-fi horror.
Yeah, let's rewatch that scene where he watches his wife die again. Yeah, like he has to relive all that shit back to when he's a heartbeat and a fetus.
Yep.
So Princess Aura takes Flash, flies him to Arboria, the land of Prince Baron, and they witness an initiation of a young woodsman who has to stick his arm inside of the sacred stump and hope that he doesn't get stung by the wood beast. This scene, right after the memory wipe scene, was terrifying to me as a kid.
Yep.
I wouldn't stick my hand till I was 20 years old. I wouldn't stick my hand in any hole for fear that there was a wood beast in there. And again, they have green blood. The woodsmen have green. Well, no, they don't, because when he hurts Baron, they have red blood. So I guess the wood beast has green poison or whatever, because when he stings that kid on the wrist, it's all green and bubbly.
Yeah. No, I think it's they have green blood in their arms, red blood in their head. I don't know.
Those red-blooded faced woodsmen.
Yeah. But the young guy who played that role, he was very well known from British television for a kids' educational program called Blue Peter.
Oh.
And it was almost quite, if you were a young kid in England watching this film, it was really jarring. You're like, this is the guy who shows us how to make, little models out of egg cartons and toilet rolls and stuff on Blue Peter, and now all of a sudden,
oh wow,
he's getting murdered in Arboria.
That's like having the Blues Clues guy get blown away by a Mongo soldier.
Yeah, almost as though what's the guy's name? Tom Hanks just played him in a Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, yeah.
Mr. He was like a really young sort of version of Mr. Rogers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I never knew that. Yeah, Blue Peter. I've never seen Blue Peter.
I don't think anyone outside of England probably has.
So of course, Princess Aura asks Prince Baron if she will harbor Flash for her until she gets back. And he agrees, but of course that comes with a catch. He imprisons him and wants to kill him, but he promises Aura, I won't kill him. So he figures out a way. Well, I'll put him in the larder, I'll have my guy go down, act like he's in prison. They break out. They come up here to get weapons, and then they trespass in the sacred wood beast area. And then I'll make him do the wood beast thing, and then he'll die. Well, they have their little standoff. Flash gets wise that Baron's not going to let him walk out of there, basically. So he fakes getting stung, grabs the sword, gets away. Baron goes after him, says, I hunt him alone. Those two are separated from everybody else. And then the Hawkmen, who have already captured Dale and Zarkov, come to Arboria and then capture those two, which is kind of convenient, but it gets them all together in the same room. And that's one thing when you're writing a script, that's always a kind of thing, a note you have off to the side where it's like, how do I get these people in the same room?
Yep.
So it's all just like means to an end. And of course, Aura goes back and she gets captured. They know that she's helped Flash escape, and they are torturing her. And what do they threaten her with that finally gets her to crack?
I don't remember. Because what I remember about that scene is the angle of the camera placement.
Oh, yeah, it's like right up
outfit,
her ass.
Her outfit, her bareback, the boreworms.
The boreworms, yeah. And another nice little touch is they've got her being restrained with those same hands that came out of the gun that grabbed Flash. Nice little touch. And that kind of goes into that whole sadomasochism thing that Clytus and Ming kind of have going on. And they're whipping her.
You reckon Dino De Laurentiis had a bit of a thing with that as well?
He very well may have. That could have been. I mean, this was a very disco era too. It was a very sexy time. So she's wearing that pink leotard with the go-go boots, and General Kala is like whipping her. And she's like kind of antagonizing her as she does it. Like, just tell us what we want. We don't like doing this. We don't want to hurt you. And, and the whole time you're like, bitch, you totally want to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Clytus is like, no, wait, get me the boreworms. And they never explain what the boreworms are, but she does not want those fucking boreworms anywhere near her. Kind of glad we didn't get that scene, because I feel like the boreworms are kind of had a rapey connotation to them. I don't know.
I think my young imagination actually pictured, God knows why, worms that they were going to put in her ears and bore into her brain. I don't know.
That's a good point. Well, little Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, like the little worms in the ear. Yeah, that would make sense. That's actually a good point. All right, good old boreworms. I like that way better than them being rapey slugs.
Yeah,
that works better for me, both as an adult and as a kid. Flash and Baron are taken back to Voltan's castle, his awesome flying jet castle or whatever it is.
Yep.
And of course they have he's reunited with Zarkov and Dale. The gang's all together. And of course, Voltan he hates Baron, so he wants him out of there. And then Baron's like, well, wait a minute, I'm not your prisoner because I'm challenging you to a trial by combat. Well, Voltan thinks that he's challenging him. He's like, who do you want to fight? And he's like, I want to fight Flash. So they have and as soon as he says that, Flash has this great line. And it's one of my probably my second or third favorite line in the movie, but he just delivers it so innocently and so like blank. And he's just like, this place is a lunatic asylum. He's like, wait, you want to fight me now? Like, dude, like we're not enemies. Like that guy's our enemy. Like, let's go fight him. And he's just trying to convince everybody, like, let's team up and fight this fucker. And he's like, you want to fight me now? And he's like, this is a lunatic asylum. So then they have
And then
that. Oh, go ahead.
it's a great little set piece, as well, where they're on they have to kind of walk across a little bridge that then retracts. Or they're on this little round arena,
Yep.
and then they're fighting with whips, and so as the duel progresses, the arena they're standing on, first of all, it starts to move around, then spikes start to come up, and there's a few times in there I've sort of watching that thinking, because those spikes do look like metal spikes coming up, and
they look like it. They're actually rubber. And yeah, they were soft, kind of a foamy. They were rigid, but they were foamy rubber. And because there's a scene where Sam rolls back, and one of those spikes comes right up. I mean, it glides right along his ear and his head. And I remember seeing that as a kid. It's like, holy shit! He almost just impaled his head on that. But watching some of the making of stuff, it was foam. The one that Baron grabs when he goes to fall is that one's hard. That one's hard enough to hold his weight. But as a kid watching that, the first time I've ever had anxiety in my life, I was like, holy shit. Like, I mean, it's bad enough that this thing that they're fighting on this thing and it's moving, but now there's spikes. Like, how would you do that? Like, it was such an over the top moment. But just great. It's a great scene.
We've touched on a lot of I wouldn't even say it's an underlying sexual connotation through this film. It's actually quite overt. And then you're talking about the one Baron grabs is hard.
That spike, most of them are soft, but the one Baron grabs is hard. It's rigid.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing in that scene is it's a great little physical acting scene. Is Brian Blessed gooses Melody Anderson. And like he's walking behind her, and he basically sticks his thumb in her ass, and she's like, ah! And he's all like, woo!
Yeah.
And that little line that woo! His little reaction to what she does is just so beautiful.
He's
just so much fun.
It's a pantomime acting style. You know what pantomime is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a pantomime acting, because Brian, I believe, has done a fair bit of pantomime in the UK as well. But he just is that character, and I like to imagine that when they were filming that little shot there where he sticks his thumb or pinches her on the ass, whatever, that was not in the script, that he just decided, I'm just going to grab her on the ass.
I would bet money that he was just like, yep, I'm just going to do this. And then when she reacts, he's like, woo!
Yeah.
He was you can't not love Voltan in this movie. I don't care who you are.
It's a force of nature.
And he's such a booming, just everything that guy says is just, it's almost like watching Tim Curry, where when he's going over the top and being some of those big characters that he's been, he's just a delight to watch. And every line that Voltan says is just quotable to me. And not so much even the line itself, it's just how he delivers it. And we'll get to more of that here in a second. Gordon's alive. Baron. And of course he has the Gordon's alive line in this scene too. And famously, the Queen of England actually asked him to say that line for her once. When they were at like a charity thing or something like that. And she was like, say the line. And he's like, what line? And he thought it was from like, some theater that he had done. And she's like, Gordon's alive. And he's like, you've seen that movie?
There you go. The Queen of England likes this film.
Yep. And so Flash wins the fight by not letting Baron fall. He reaches his hand out, pulls him up, and that's all Baron has to see for him to be like, you know what? Where you go, I follow. Like, not only did you just save my life and not kill me, but like you just showed me, and Dale says this line later on, why humans are better than us. Like, you just showed me why it's worth fighting with you. And it's a beautiful little scene. And we haven't really talked about Timothy Dalton yet either, but everything else in this movie you can call not everything, but most of it you can call campy. Timothy Dalton is playing this role straight as a fucking arrow.
Yes.
And he is just, I mean, he is right up the middle and taking this all the way serious. And I feel like it's what part of what makes this movie work is that you love Voltan for how goofy he is, but you kind of love Prince Baron too for how rigid he is and how just he's unflappable until he sees the light.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and when he goes full commando later on in the movie, that's the part when I was a kid where I was like, fuck yeah. Like, yes.
There's just a little moment there of physical acting in that bit later on where you're talking about he goes full commando that I just love. And it's where he grabs the big laser gun off the tripod
and he kicks the
but it's
tripod
the way
over.
the way he kicks it out of the way, and you're like that. And I like to imagine that was a moment when someone looked at that and went, "Oh, he should be James Bond."
Well, it's funny. They actually wanted him for James Bond way before this movie came out. He was the original choice to replace Sean Connery as James Bond.
Yeah,
and he was doing theater at the time, and he had commitments and couldn't do it, and he was too young, and he felt like he was too young. So then they went to Lazenby, and then they went to Roger Moore right after that. Well, whenever Roger Moore was done in '85, they went right back to Timothy Dalton, and they were like, "Now you're not too old. You don't have anything going on." Like, and so he was like, "Absolutely." I mean, I take that back. They wanted Pierce Brosnan for their first choice to replace Roger Moore, and he couldn't get out of. He almost did. He was signed up and everything, couldn't get out of his Remington Steel contract.
Yeah.
So then they fell back and did Timothy Dalton, which thank God they did, because I feel like he's our best James Bond. Hot take, write that one down.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after that, so Baron is on Flash's side at this point, and they're trying to talk Voltan into it. And they're like, "What? No, we can't. We're still like a year away. We don't have the weapons. It's too early. We can't do this." Clytus shows up in his big Wasp B ship or whatever it is.
Yep.
And then they're like, "Oh shit, we're screwed." So Voltan orders all the Hawkmen like we're fucked. Like, let's get out of here. So they all evacuate. Clytus comes down, and Clytus comes down first and tells Prince Baron, "Yep, you're going to be arrested for treason. You're going to turn over the prisoners to me. We've already got Princess Aura, and I tortured her." Prince Baron's like, "Oh yeah? Okay, well, now this is happening." So he literally throws him to Flash. Flash throws him on the spikes. He's dead. Eyeballs pop out. Kind of a shame that they wasted Clytus, because I felt like he had a lot more maybe in the sequels that never happened.
Yeah,
kind of a shame. I was a little, even as a kid, I was kind of like bummed that they killed him there. And so then that's when the Hawkmen leave, and Ming shows up right after that. Dale and Zarkov and Baron are captured, imprisoned. Ming comes down and has his talk with Flash.
Yep.
What do you think about that scene?
Once again, it's terrific acting from Von Sydow. Little moments where he just he kicks a goblet off the edge, and you see it go, and it's of course it's one of those comic book cliche, TV serial cliches where he doesn't kill Flash. He's like, "I'm going to leave you here, and when this castle collapses, you're going to die." And of course,
yeah, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to kill you myself. I'm going to let nature kill you. Yeah. Well, and I love that scene because he's kind of like, not to get biblical here, but he's kind of like Satan tempting Jesus on the cross, where it's like, you're in a bad situation here. How about if I bring you over to my side? All you have to do is say the word, and I'll give you your own kingdom. You can rule the earth if you want to. And he wants to do that because he's never seen anything like Flash before. He's never seen that kind of virtue and that kind of nobility and everything else, and he's fascinated by it. He doesn't want to just kill him now. He's like, no, I want to harness this. I want to use this for my own ends.
Yeah.
And I make that biblical analogy because Flash is so virtuous and he's so good that he can't even, and he ponders it for a second because he's like, oh, and then you call off the attack and then everybody on Earth would be safe. And, because I'll do whatever to save everybody. And then he's like, well, yes and no. They won't quite be the same people you remember. And he gives that beautiful line where he's like, let's just say they'll be more tractable, easier to control. They'll be satisfied with less. And then he's like, oh, so you mean slaves? Like, and that's when he checks out and he's like, yeah, absolutely not. But Ming has that great line where he kicks the goblet and he's like, I'd much rather have you on my side than scattered into atoms. And just kicking that goblet off and seeing that goblet spin as it falls down into the jello. Just a wonderful scene. But again, I love that he's so steadfast and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So if you're going to kill me, dude. Like, so love that. Of course, there's always a way out. Ming starts blasting the kingdom and things start falling apart. Flash falls down a tube, kind of like Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
A lot of similarities there. He falls down a tube, slides to his safety. Finds a Hawkman rocket cycle. Why they need rocket cycles? Who knows? They could fly.
Because the plot needed them to.
They didn't need them when they evacuated, but
no, and even when they rescue prisoners, they don't go, oh, here's a rocket cycle. No, we'll just carry you between two Hawkmen.
You know what? You know where it came from? I bet. No, I was going to say Zarkov and Dale flew off on a rocket cycle, so maybe they parked it there. When they captured them, they had them suspended and they were flying with them. But maybe they towed it back or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But
it doesn't matter.
Anyway, we're dissecting too much. So anyway, Flash gets on that thing, takes off. So he gets another chance. He eludes death once again, which is very much a throwback to like the serial, like the radio show serials and things like that, where it's like, will Flash Gordon get away? Find out next week, right after Little Orphan Annie.
Yeah.
And so he gets away and he calls Voltan on the radio. Voltan and his crew are down in Arboria, basically just pondering what they just did. And Voltan's just beating himself up, being like, okay, yes, I suck. Sorry, what can I do? And his lieutenant, his right-hand man, is giving him shit. And he's like, with respect, the guy that rid us of Clytus, rid isn't a word, rid us of Clytus, should have gotten better than that. And he's like, shut up. And I love this line. God, I love every line in this movie, but I love this line from Brian Blessed where he says, maybe I'd do it different if I had it over again.
Yeah.
I love how much sorrow is in what he says there. And then right after he says that, Flash is like, Flash Gordon to Voltan. And he's like, what? And I read you. Where are you? And, what is he doing? What does he say that he's doing at that point?
I'm on a rocket cycle heading for... Can't remember where he's heading for.
Flying blind on a rocket cycle.
That's it. Flying
blind on a rocket cycle. So of course he says he's sorry, and we're on your side basically. So Voltan gets his redemption at that point.
Yep.
And you don't see it, you don't hear it, but at that point they make a plan to attack Mongo City. Let's see. So then we go back to Mongo. There's preparations in order for the big wedding between Ming and Dale that she agrees to if he spares Baron and Zarkov, which he has no plans to do because General Kala even announces, we're going to execute these two fucking guys. So feel free to watch that while you're waiting on the wedding. Aura goes to see Dale. They have a little cat fight, and then she realizes Aura's changed. She got tortured. She's on our side now, and just kind of buys into it. I always had a problem with that too, but she's like, "I believe you. You're good. You said you're sorry. It's cool."
Yeah.
So then Flash comes up on the rocket cycle by himself, flies close enough to the city where they see him coming. Flash Gordon approaching. General Kala's like, what the hell? Like, activate the lightning field. And so he turns around, flies off, and she dispatches War Rocket Ajax. I loved her line delivery in that too. It's dispatch War Rocket Ajax to bring back his body.
And then we get this wonderful scene with some bad special effects, like the Hawkman flying is not great.
Yeah,
but still with that soundtrack, and basically the Hawkmen come along with Flash, and they board War Rocket Ajax, and
which is captain. Which the captain of War Rocket Ajax looks like Ronnie James Dio. He is not an attractive guy, and he's just very Dio in the face. And so all the Hawkmen are hiding in a cloud, and they fly up, and he's all like, electrify cloud. And they fly through the cloud. They think that they're frying him, and that he's gonna fly out, or he's gonna drop, and they're gonna put the nets out and catch him. Well, that's their trap play, and then all the Hawkmen are hanging on wires. Very, very shoddy special effects, even for the time. But what can you do? It's the movie is a product of when it was made. If they had digital effects back then, it would have looked way better. My only gripe with the movie is the Hawkmen wings and the way they look when they're flying, but they did have a lot of guys flying at the same time, which was kind of impressive.
Yeah.
Or falling on wires or whatever. Even some guys, when they get shot, like there's that delay where they're like, like they have to detach themselves from the cable, where it's like, now I'm falling. So then we get that great Queen, the Attack of the Hawkmen song. That I just love that.
It's amazing how you can just do that.
Oh, I've got that on my gym playlist, man. Yeah, I'm in there doing like tricep curls to that song. And of course, Brian Blessed gets one of his most famous lines from the movie is when he screams out for his Hawkmen to attack by screaming, "Second wave, dive!"
Yes.
And he's just, it's like he's just chewing the air when he says that, and it's just so great. And that whole scene just gets you so hyped for like kicking some ass and attacking. And so they all board, they board the ship. They're repelling boarders. They're fighting. I think it's the biggest action scene in the movie.
Yeah,
and I think it's the most well done. I think it's great. I mean, even with them landing on it and how kind of clunky that is, it's pretty cool. It's almost like a pirate movie. It reminds me of like.
I loved it when I was a kid. Absolutely loved it. It is kind of inspired by the pirate movies, because there's even bits where don't they use a rope and grappling hook at one point as well? And
I think so. I know he has a mine. It looks like an old 50s alarm bell or something like that, and it's got an antenna in the middle. But he like magnetizes it and like sticks it on there, and then the guy gets shot, and he's like, "Detonate the mine." But it's very much like pirate ships, like people jumping back and forth, like boarding like that, and very, very kind of Captain Blood. I get that vibe from it, but it was a fun scene. And of course, I mean, Brian Blessed's running around with that big laser cannon and just like blowing dudes away and shoving guys off the wing while he's laughing at them. He's like, "Woo, woo, woo, ha, ha, ha."
Yeah.
And, he shoves that one guy off the wing, and then he's all like, "Ha, ha, ha, And just, I mean, he's impossible not to love. I love every bit of him in this movie. While that's happening, they cut back to the palace in the dungeon with Baron and Zarkov chained to the wall. Baron asks Zarkov a kind of a throwaway line too, which I think adds a little humor to it. He's all like, "Tell me again about this man Houdini."
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ara shows up and sets him free. And the revolt begins at this point. The whole team is together, and they are all on the same page. They are ready to fight back.
Yep.
Baron tells Ara, "I've changed." She tells him the same thing. He's all like, "Will you marry me? Like, let's be good people." And he goes full on commando. And
Yep.
him and Zarkov basically try to figure out how to shut off the lightning field. Zarkov, they go to the control center where General Kala is. Baron kills her, and she melts into the floor, which is kind of a neat effect. And he rips the visor off the agent, and then you see all the wires inside their heads, and they're all like,
when he kills her, he melts into the floor. It's almost like he's just burst a sex doll.
yeah, she's like a sex doll full of motor oil. It's just like, oh yeah, she just kind of like goops into the ground, into the grate. And which Clytus kind of dies the same way. Like once his eyes and his tongue pop out, he just kind of melts. So that doesn't work. So Baron's like, "All right, I'm on my way to try to take out the lightning field a different way." Zarkov stays there, and he's pushing buttons, and he's all like, "There's got to be a way of deactivating the field." And so Baron fights his way through the corridors, and that's when he has his little commando moment where he is shooting some of the red guards, and he grabs that mounted laser gun. It's kind of like a machine gun, and like you said, he kicks over that tripod. Just it's like a little touch where he's just like, got this thing, and kicks that over, and it's he just shows so much like kind of badass capability right there that I just love it.
Yeah,
and shows kind of like what a warrior he is, and kind of how he's fit to lead the rest of them at the end of the movie. And then they cut to the wedding march with Dale and the Queen playing the wedding march song, which is really cool. They take over the war rocket. Everybody leaves. All the Hawkmen leave. Voltan and Flash stay behind to pilot the ship through the lightning field, and then their plan is to bail out with him carrying Flash. Flash realizes that's never going to work. I've got to pilot this ship till the last second, kind of like Steve Rogers in the first Captain America movie.
Yep.
And he's kind of got to go down with the ship, again, making a hero play. And he has his kind of goodbye with Voltan, and it's a sweet little exchange. What do you remember about that?
Is it? I can't remember if he's talking to Voltan or it's when. So he talks about the rational transaction, and this is what these people haven't seen before in this virtuous human, one life for billions.
Yep.
Yeah, and they do have this very sweet kind of at the end. I don't remember the exact words, but it's when they're leaving, it's like, man, we're close friends now, and yeah.
Well, he has the line is he gives him is that must be one hell of a planet you men come from.
That's it.
And Flash says, "Not too bad," and I love that because that's like you said, that's when Voltan is just like, "Yep, I'm on board, dude." Like you guys, if any of the other guys from your planet are like you, then I can see why you're willing to do this. And it's a sweet scene, even though they're yelling it and fire and bombs and everything else are going off.
And the whole similarity between that and the Captain America that you just brought up hasn't occurred to me before, but the two characters have got a lot of core similarities. You know,
Oh yeah,
their
very much.
earnestness and
Well, they're very much moral compasses, and they
Yeah.
always do the right thing no matter what the cost.
Yeah.
And they're both characters that should be emulated. They're both characters that should be admired. Because even though he's kind of a dummy, he does the right thing in his heart, and no matter what, as long as you do that, you're a hero.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but as long as you do that, you're on your way to becoming a hero. That's the first step. And being willing to make those sacrifices that he's, already, I mean, he's already died basically twice in this movie and come back. So, I mean, he's that guy that you can't keep down, like Captain America. Back at the palace, we're back in the wedding thing. I did notice that one of the ships does a flyby outside, and it says, "All creatures must make merry, ... under pain of death." I always love that, because it's such a dichotomy where it's like, you better enjoy yourself or we're gonna fucking kill you.
Yep.
And it perfectly encapsulates like what life is like in Mongo City, basically. And then, of course, the priest or whatever gives the line, "Do you take Del Arden to be your Empress of the Hour?" And then Ming says, "Of the hour?"
Of the hour? Yes.
"Do you promise to use her as you will?" "Most certainly." "Until which time you see fit to dispose of her." "Yeah, sure." And then Dale's like, "I do not." The fuck? Like, what is this shit? Oh, I love that little bit of comedy right before, Baron blows away the guy with the lightning field. It comes down. Flash, thinks he's about to die again. And he basically says his goodbyes to Dale by proxy. And he's just like, "Dale, what a damn shame. This would have been awesome." And boom, he gets his chance again. And he eludes death. He flies right into the wedding and impales Ming with the pointy tip of War Rocket Ajax. War Rocket Ajax, you're the real MVP here for having that pointy tip. Which, again, going back to that kind of subliminal sexual thing, he impales Ming with, the rod on the front of a kind of a penis-shaped ship.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, Ming has the thing where he, tries to use his magic ring, and he just doesn't have enough power left. Almost like he's impotent.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost his mojo. And so he disappears into the ring, assumedly. And everybody comes up. Everybody's like, "Hey, it's over. We won. It's cool." And then the floating head, the executioner droid or whatever it is, comes up. They think that they're going to have to fight this thing now. And it delivers the line, "Congratulations, Flash Gordon. You've saved your Earth." And then Flash does one of the greatest endings of any movie, drops his sword and literally just jumps up like any red-blooded hero would.
It's a freeze frame, yeah.
Which is great, because they had no idea how to end that. They had no idea what to do in that scene, and it was just kind of like, kind of like the Han Solo scene in Empire Strikes Back when he says, "I know," after she says, "I love you." They did like 100 takes of that, and then it was like, let's just try this one, and they just did it, and they threw it at the wall, and it stuck. So,
and I love that moment so much that you actually see it featured in the intro video for the 3POA podcast.
Oh, nice!
Where he jumps off.
It does.
Yeah.
It's an iconic scene, I think.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have the denouement, and everybody walks out at the end. Everybody's celebrating, kind of like the end of Star Wars, where they have like the ceremony and the award ceremony.
Well, the executioner droid, like Star Wars.
There's a lot of Star Wars analogs in this. There really is a lot of parallels, but so at the time, I can see why people compare. Well,
there's a lot of Buster
exactly.
Crabs, Flash Gordon in Star Wars. It's
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And everything is derivative. I always tell people when they throw that kind of shit at me with a movie, it's like, well, it's kind of like Star Wars. It just wants to be that. And it's like everything wants to be Star Wars. Everything wants to be everything that Star Wars wanted to be. Like
yeah,
it's all cyclical. You know, it all comes around. Um, I think the ending is perfect. I think it bookends this movie. I would have loved to have gotten two sequels, but
yeah.
you know, it wasn't in the cards. And I think what we got is a perfect slice of pie. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's just the right amount.
Yep.
And there is one thing I want to do before we wrap up, and it's our segment that we call bullet points. And these are 5 action movie tropes and that I kind of pull at random and we discuss them on whether or not the movie has these included in them and just kind of as discussion points. And the first one is the virtuous hero.
In spades.
Yeah. Boy, does it.
Yeah.
Boy, does it. I think it's the template for the virtuous hero.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because also not only is he the virtuous hero, but he also manages to convince all these other people to change their own behavior and
yep.
join him. Yeah.
He converts everybody else in the movie into a virtuous hero.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he spreads the love. On the flip side of that coin, the absolute villain.
In spades.
In spades, just like what we talked about earlier. I mean, to have one of those roles where you can just really every one of the villain roles in this is one of those roles. Clytus is just evil to the core. Kala is just evil to the core. Ming, the worst. Like he's not just bad, he is the worst, and he rolls around in it like a pig in slop. He thoroughly enjoys being the worst. I feel like he's the best villain of 1980. Second best would be Darth Vader. I feel like he is a much better villain than Darth Vader was in Empire Strikes Back. Because at the end of Empire Strikes Back, you're kind of like, that's when you get the reveal about Vader, and you're like, he used to be a good guy. Maybe and Luke's his son. Maybe he could be again. With Ming, there's no redemption whatsoever. There's no humanizing Ming the Merciless.
No.
Thanos is more apologetic than Ming the Merciless. Number 3 is the unlikely team up.
In spades. We're ticking some bullet point boxes here.
Very much so. The unlikely team up happens with multiple people.
Several times.
Yeah, a few different times. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep, when our 3 Earthlings board the intergalactic space dildo.
Yep.
An unlikely team up, and then with Baron, with Voltan, even with Princess Aura.
The most unlikely of all the team ups because she's the bad guy's daughter. I mean, she should be just as bad as all of them are, but she's not. So it's very unlikely.
Or maybe she's just still gagging for a bit of Flash.
She just wants that Flash dick.
yeah. But she ends up with Baron.
I wonder how Baron feels about that. I feel like Baron and Flash are always going to have that thing where it's like, dude, just tell me. It's okay. Just tell me. Did you fuck my wife? I know you guys, like, she got you out of there. You were wearing those black underwear. Like, dude, I know you guys fucked on the way to Arboria. Like, just tell me.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the change of heart, which, again, I feel like that plays right into the unlikely team-ups. I feel like everybody has a change of heart in this, with the exception of the bad guys.
Yep.
Although they do kind of paint Baron and Voltan as bad guys at the beginning, but you kind of always know that they're not going to be.
Yep.
So there is a change of heart.
I think when I watched it as a kid, I always knew that Voltan wasn't going to be a bad guy, but Baron, I wasn't quite so sure. And that's because of, as you were saying earlier, Timothy Dalton playing this role so straight.
Yep.
You know, he was a British theatre actor. I'm the prince. And it's, yeah, I don't know if he was directed that way by Mike Hodges, but it's almost like, and it again, it shouldn't work, but it does work. It's like everyone else is playing this movie a certain way, and then Timothy Dalton's just over there going, "I'm playing this completely differently."
Yeah.
I'm not a buffoon. If I'm going to do this, I'm playing it dead straight. So,
yep. I may be wearing latticinoed leather jumper or whatever he had on.
yeah,
I may be wearing a shirt made out of grass, but I'm not a buffoon. Yeah, he plays it just cold as ice. And I feel like as a kid, I always thought he was going to turn traitor. I always thought he was going to be like a hidden bad guy. And it's for the stupidest reason, but you know why? Because of that little ass mustache he had. He had the like the little Pringles guy mustache. And I was like, I don't trust him because of that damn mustache. And but I feel like that's why even as a kid and as an adult, I get a thrill when he goes full commando and just starts blowing away the bad guys. And I love that because that's showing you that like, oh no, he's taking this seriously. He is 100% a good guy. So it dissuades that feeling. And I love that. And bullet point number 5, win in the end. And of course, everybody wins. Everybody wins in the end in grand fashion.
They do, but there's one thing though, is our Earth heroes don't get back to Earth.
They don't, and it's weird too because they mention it. And they're like, well, we certainly invite you all to stay. And he kind of says that like you guys already have your bags packed. It's like, oh no, wait, please don't leave. Like we have dinner. Oh, okay, bye. Oh, come back, really, please come back. But it's not like they have a way to get back. I mean, I guess their rocket is still there, so they could always fuel it up. They can take more rocket Ajax, maybe. Like
the very final shot in this film is of Ming's ring on the floor and a black gloved hand or red gloved hand. I can't remember what color. Picks up the ring and then it says the end ? They'd always planned on sequels, so that's why our heroes don't get home. But because they never made sequels, to me, it's as though they never did make it back. You know, they ended up living the rest of their lives on Mongo.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I like to think of it, is because how lame would that have been if they came back to Earth? Because then because nobody wants to see Earth at that point. I mean,
especially not after all the earthquakes and.
No, yeah, it's probably like Thundar the Barbarian on Earth at this point.
Yeah.
They're talking about how close the moon is. I mean, if the moon was 20 degrees off its axis, you know how screwed we'd be.
Yeah.
Let alone like hanging out right outside. All right. My last question, though, whose hand is it that picks up the ring?
I've always wondered, Is
it an unknown assailant or is it Clytus back from the dead? General Kala? Maybe she leaked to get away and then she reinflated herself? I wonder where they would have gone with that.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of Clytus back from the dead. God knows how they would pull that off, but because we needed more of that character, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's definitely a ringer in the movie where it's just like, I mean, kind of like how Brian Blessed, every scene he's in, he's just chewing scenery.
Yeah.
And just dripping every line out of his mouth. I love it. Love this film.
Me too.
Well, that about does
Certainly
it, man.
a guilty pleasure.
That about does it. I know you have a thing you've got to go do. So if you want
Yep.
to, just remind everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so on my main portal is YouTube, Analog Toys. Do lots of videos about vintage toys, some videos about modern toys, but then every other week I am a co-host on a podcast called the 3POA, which is also hosted on Analog Toys, and with my friends Laser Pants and Bobby Valor. And yeah, I've got one of those in about an hour, so looking forward to that. We're asking ourselves the question: what happened to all the play sets?
That's a very good question. Nice.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm going to be watching that after we get off here.
Awesome.
But yeah, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. This has been a blast. I can talk about this movie.
Well, thank you.
I hope we get an invite back as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a whole list, man. Yeah, you just let me know and we'll make it happen. And but yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. I knew you'd be a great guest. Yeah, I've just got to edit this baby down and yeah.
Shouldn't take much editing, I think.
Now this one's going to be a lot easier than the first episode. And that one, I mean, I sound like I'm in a well the whole time because my audio was.
This sounds really good. Really, I don't know
off.
what you did. I don't know what you did different, but yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. You know what it is? Is when I did it before, I was just using the crane mic, and I didn't have my my headphone mic plugged in. And having the headphone mic plugged in and the crane mic simultaneously gives me this sound, and I don't know how it works.
Nice.
No idea, but this is what I wanted to sound like in that episode, and I sound like I'm standing outside of a house, and Michael's like inside with everybody else. But it was our first one, and we had such a great conversation about that one. I just had to post it. So.
Oh, absolutely, man. I listened to it and I really enjoyed it as well. So
Nice.
Yeah, I can see past that.
Oh, and I can't. Also, we haven't mentioned it, but I can't wait to get my Desert Rat action figure, which is based on yourself. It is a 1:1 reproduction of you. Well, not 1:1 scale, but you know.
Yep. Pre-orders close on Friday the 4th. There will be an opportunity to get the figure later down the line around May when it comes out. But the way Series 1 of Valaverse has sold out everywhere, you don't want to take the risk. So
absolutely. And tell everybody where they can find that.
www.valaverse.com. It's exclusive to Valaverse in the United States. It's not being sold by Big Bad Toy Store or anything. It's exclusive to the Valaverse website. But because Valaverse don't do international shipping, there are different international distributors. Toy Snowman, if you're trying to order the figure in Canada, so go to toysnowman.com. In the UK, it's Toys-R-Ama, and in Australia, it's Action Figure Industries. So, so if you're in Europe, Australia, or Canada, you've still got an opportunity to get Desert Rat. So.
Awesome. And I highly recommend it. It is a beautiful figure of a beautiful man, my good friend Tony Roberts.
Yeah.
And be sure and check Tony and myself out in Iconicon this year, which will be coming out at the end of June.
Yes.
And it is a online convention featuring podcasters and YouTube channels and celebrities and all kinds of movie people and lots of fun stuff. So be sure and check that out. Iconicon 2022.
Can't wait.
Thanks
Lots
again
of
for
planning.
coming, man.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All righty. We will see you guys next time. I don't know what the episode's going to be. I believe it might be Fifth Element. So, yeah, that'll be fun.
It will.
Awesome, man. Well, you have a good night. And
you too.
take us out here.